Thanks, Diesel.
No. I don't work that way. With all due respect, that is bullshit!
These videos are satiric reviews. You don't have to agree, but don't bitch about it.
I had a little bit of a legitimacy look to me. I was a big motherfucker that looked like an ass kicker, that looked like if you saw him on really walk in someplace, that guy would probably beat the fuck out of me.
Hey there, I'm social injustice warrior V Infuso, and in the past I've covered the rise of Razor Ramon. So what better way to follow that up than with the downfall of Diesel? The man who would be known as Diesel originated in WCW, working a plethora of gimmicks that ultimately amounted to brain farts. Look, I love you, Dusty. I do. I mean, you gave me some great memories, you had some good ideas, but you've had better days, is all I'm saying. You've had better days. He'd begin his career as one half of the tag team known as the Master Blasters, which honestly sounds like a weird tape that you'd find when looking through your father's personal VHS collection, but sure, yeah, no, call yourself whatever you want. He went by the name Steel, had an orange mohawk, and did nothing of note. From there, he became Oz, a gimmick obviously ripped off, inspired by the Wizard of Oz, as seen by his entrances and common sense. The Oz gimmick, the Oz gimmick, man, I wish I could talk more about it, just so I have an excuse to show you more footage from it, but during the stint, he did nothing of note. Oh, well, outside of wearing a Party City mask to the ring. Eventually, he'd be repackaged as Vinny Vegas, which really allowed Nash to show his charisma. It gave him a chance to be charming and personable. This was his shot to really entertain.
How you doing? It's the Vin Man here. I'm gonna tell you something right now. You're driving me crazy. I'm gonna take this toilet lid-sized hand and smack the taste out of your mouth.
And it was during this run that he did nothing of note. But it was this performance that earned him a WWF contract at the request of the Heartbreak Kid, Shawn Michaels. Of course, Shawn had something to gain out of this, because it was also Shawn's request that the two be teamed together. The WWF, in their infinite wisdom, decided to name him Diesel and give him one of the most annoying entrance themes of all time. And yet, somehow, it worked. Diesel would make his big WWF debut at a house show, meaning it went entirely untelevised. He'd aid Shawn in beating his longtime rival, former best friend, and tag team partner Marty Jannetty, taking the Intercontinental title off him in the process. And wait a second, you mean to tell me that Diesel, this giant, this mastodon of a man, was introduced to a major story, paired with one of the company's most over up-and-coming talents, proceeded to aid him in a long-time rivalry and match which not only saw the championship on the line, but ended with a title change. And that was kept off TV? He appeared being the at first silent but violent insurance policy of HBK. He'd often involve himself in Shawn's matches, making sure his buddy got the victory. Though Shawn would prove that it was a two-way street, as he'd also involve himself in Diesel's matches, making sure he got the win. It was this exact tactic that would win Diesel his first championship with the company when he took the Intercontinental title off of Razor Ramon. Unfortunately, it would also be this tactic that lost Diesel that championship shortly after. Back to Razor Ramon. Diesel and Shawn were practically attached at the hip. He would accompany Shawn everywhere, whether it was walking him to ringside or being within eyeshot of the Heartbreak Kid during interviews.
The World Wrestling Federation's version of the Dynamic Duo are going to be coming into Gotham City, driving in their Batmobile. Granted, it's a stretch limo. Welcome once again, boys and girls, to the Wild Kingdom. That's right, into Gotham City, into the Batcave, that's right. In the Animal Kingdom, what kind of animal would I be? Lion. Uh-huh. And that would have to make you the Lion King. I like that. I looked in the dictionary the other day. I looked up the word resilient. Shawn's picture was there. Imagine that. Imagine that. In the Animal Kingdom, what would King Mabel and Sir Mo be? Water buffalo. Batman and Robin are both going to be wearing utility belts. The World Wrestling Federation Championship and the World Wrestling Federation Intercontinental Championship. And the kings of the jungle can pounce and attack. You might as well call us extra strength Tylenol, because when we're through with them, 3 headaches are going to be gone. for good. You two guys are messing with dudes with attitudes. Big Daddy Cool Diesel and myself, fortunately, are now the new World Wrestling Federation Tag Team. Oh, come on! And I'm telling you, he is a wrecking machine. Really? Not to mention the second biggest lady killer in the World Wrestling Federation.
Oh, my gosh. Let's take a break. We'll come right back.
Shawn Michaels, who's my best friend, a man that believed in me.
Diesel, being the bodyguard, best friend, and insurance policy of Michaels, would adopt all of his enemies. If anyone had a problem with Shawn, the chances are they had a problem with the big guy. Such was the case of the bad guy Razor Ramon, a constant rival or just overall opponent of Shawn's. His problems with the Heartbreak Kid soon transitioned into issues with Big Daddy Cool. And I'm sure it didn't hurt that there was usually a title on the line as well. He even had a spot as co-host of the Heartbreak Hotel, which I have to say was a terrible show. I mean, it's not quite Carlito's Cabana terrible, but, you know, it's up there. Definitely a far cry from Piper's Pit. Maybe it's just me, and to be fair, maybe it is. It could be. But this show it always just rubbed me the wrong way. I mean, they're in a makeshift hotel room with a heart-shaped bed, and something about Shawn, I don't know what it is, but something just screams, I want to bang you on this. And my big buddy back there, oh, he wants to watch. I mean, Shawn will always be a good promo, but was this really the best way to hear his voice?
I don't think so.
Diesel, like Shawn, began to become beloved by the audience, even if they were clearly heels. They were the team that you hated, but you also secretly wanted to be friends with. You know, just so long as Shawn promised to never wear his entrance gear in public with you. You know, I mean, I have nothing against it. I mean, here's what my friends wear in public when they're with me. So, I wish that was a joke. This is a real picture. This is a thing. The team would be dubbed Two Dudes with Attitudes, which sounds a lot less like a wrestling stable and a lot more like an edgy show on the Disney Channel, but hey, sure, call yourself whatever you want. Better than the Johnsons, I guess. Regardless of what they called themselves, there was little doubt as to where they stood in the industry, and on the card. At the tip top. The team would further solidify themselves by becoming tag team champions after winning the belts on a house show. The team's time together would, however, come to an end during the Survivor Series of 1994, a match in which Diesel dominated, eliminating his foe Razor Ramon's entire team, sans Razor. Michaels would aim a kick for Ramon, but instead hit Diesel, a move that infuriated the big man, who was already pretty pissed that he lost his title the same exact way. Diesel, fueled entirely by rage, went after his friend with his team desperately trying to hold him back and get him back in the ring. And this move collectively got them all counted out. Shawn ran for dear life, not looking to get run down by that which makes a Mack truck go. This effectively ended their alliance for the time being, with the team vacating their titles over unfixable differences. Or, you know, more accurately, because Shawn Michaels is allergic to dropping titles. Diesel would immediately be shot to stardom following the team's breakup, becoming the WWF champion just 3 days later. Once again, at a house show. Of course he did! Why wouldn't he? I mean, he debuted on a house show, he won his first tag team title on a house show. Why wouldn't he become a world champion on a house show? It's really a rite of passage. You know, I mean, it's not like any of these moments are vital to the guy's career or overall legacy or anything. I mean, it's not like any of these things would help an audience identify him or identify with him. No, just, you know, screw it. Just do everything incognito, and I'm sure the fans will take a liking to him somewhere along the way. Because, you know, what better place to crown champions, you know, than somewhere where there's no cameras? It's great. It's fantastic. Diesel beat former world champion Bob Backlund in under 10 seconds, in a complete display of dominance, thus making Shawn Michaels the Marty Jannetty in their tag team for a short time being.
Being the Federation champion is a culmination of finally achieving a dream in my life.
You don't want me to care? You did it. I don't.
Not some corporate puppet that you decided to create, Vince. After I won the title, 24 hours later, I'm up in Titan Tower with the marketing suits, the merchandising suits.
So as soon as I can win and get the belt, I'm on Raw with a Santa cap singing "We Wish You a Merry Christmas."
Hey, Diesel, we need you to smile a little bit. Earlier tonight in this building, I met some people. I made some new friends.
Why didn't they just cut my balls off right there?
We need you to be a little bit more politically correct. A little bit more corporate.
Diesel, looking for that babyface pop, respectively challenged former champion Bret Hart to a world title match at the Royal Rumble. Bret, being the best there is, the best there was, and the best there ever will be, made Diesel elevate his game, and managed to give the big guy some of his best matches, with this title match at the Royal Rumble being no exception. As good as the match was, unfortunately it would be interrupted by Diesel's former tag team partner, Shawn Michaels, who would end the match in a no contest draw. Shawn would also later that same night go on to win the Royal Rumble to become the #1 contender for Diesel's championship. Now I know what you're thinking. This must have been a hell of a main event, but that's where you're wrong, because it wasn't the main event at that year's WrestleMania. Because that WrestleMania was far too packed, and it was being headlined by football player Lawrence Taylor and Bam Bam Bigelow in a standard singles match. And you know what? Makes sense to me. That's the match I'd put on. That's a main event right there. I'd put that on last. Yeah, because I think we all really remember that really great main event that Snooki had that one year at WrestleMania. Or Maria Menounos. I don't care. Floyd Money Mayweather main evented Mania against The Big Show. Regardless of where they were on the card, they still wrestled like it was the main event. Everything about this match felt like a main event. From the two who were working in the match, to the story that was being told, to the match itself. This was the real main event of that show. Don't lie to yourselves. That other match, it was good, alright? It wasn't bad. It definitely isn't as bad as a lot of us remembered it being, and Lawrence Taylor probably could have made it as a wrestler had he actually trained. But that match was just the match that went on last. I mean, seriously, the story being told here are two former best friends fighting against each other for the company's grand prize. I mean, this match really looked like...
Consequences will never be the same!
By time all was said and done, and the bell was rung, it was Diesel who was announced the winner, and still WWF champion. It was also Diesel who would leave that event with both Pamela Anderson and Jenny McCartney, thus solidifying his place as Big Daddy Cool. Shawn, being incapable of losing clean, blamed his replacement bodyguard Psycho Sid for his misfortunes. And in turn, Sid attacked him, and he didn't even need a squeegee this time. Being a diehard babyface, Diesel would come to the aid of his former friend, and just like that, they were back together again. Shawn Michaels would win the IC title around the time, making this team seem like a bit of a power trip. And looking to gain all the gold in the WWF, the two champions challenged then tag team champions Owen Hart and Yokozuna to a match, where it was winner take all, with every belt on the line. Shawn Michaels' Intercontinental title, Owen Hart and Yokozuna's tag team belts, and Diesel's WWF Championship. It was winner take all. There were no bigger stakes, and neither team could afford to lose. Owen Hart, no-showing the event, was replaced by the British Bulldog. Although, eventually Owen Hart would return to the match to take the pinfall. And since he wasn't a legal participant, despite the fact that the Dudes with Tudes won, they'd have the tag team title stripped from them. Once again, probably because Shawn Michaels is allergic to losing championships. In the midst of their tag team reunion and following feuds that came along with it, Diesel would defend his world championship on multiple occasions against Psycho Sid, because there could only be one giant who aided Shawn Michaels in matches and used the powerbomb as a finish. Man, that is classic. That is classic storytelling. I mean, it's really just like Highlander when you think about it.
There can be only one.
Following that, he'd move on to a feud with that year's King of the Ring winner, King Mabel. That's right, it was Big Daddy Cool versus Big Daddy V, which was a match that no one asked for and had no business main eventing a pay-per-view, with all due respect to Viscera.
What he did was he just would stand over the guy and fucking kick his legs out, and his fucking ass would land in your lower back. I told him, don't fucking do that to me. And he fucking did it.
His feud with Mabel would transition into a feud with the British Bulldog, who teamed up with him on an episode of Raw before walking off, letting the big guy take on Mabel and then partner Mo by himself. It was also around this time that Bulldog would sub for Owen during that tag team championship match I previously mentioned. And speaking of that tag team championship match, Diesel would also defend his belt on Raw against tag team partner Yokozuna. Then there was the time he'd defend his championship against temporary main eventer Bam Bam Bigelow. And afterward they'd form a friendship, which I still don't get. But hey, it happened. That was the thing. Didn't forget it. Diesel would hold the belt for an impressive 358 days, which is nothing to sneeze at, winning the title in November of 1994 and holding it all the way until November of 1995. It should be noted that despite his lengthy run, his time as champion was very much considered a bust. First off, many fans felt that he was catapulted far too quickly into the main event scene. He's considered one of the lowest drawing WWE champions of all time. This push definitely fell short of the mark and didn't meet the company's standards for a champion, let alone their high expectations of him. He was kinda the Roman Reigns of his time. I mean, so much stock had been put into him. He was built up so much, but ultimately, the crowd just didn't take a huge liking to him. Which is actually somewhat surprising, as Kevin Nash, the guy who performed the Diesel gimmick, is a charismatic smartass that knows how to get a reaction from a crowd.
Hey! Easy! Look at the clowns! Not just a spot, not a liver spot, not a spot like your dog spot. No, not just any spot, but my spot. Lucky that I'm the 1998 Cannonball champion of spring break.
I guess this just wasn't his time. And hell, maybe it wasn't even his fault. You see, the WWF in 1995 was an out-of-date product, still trying to market their live-action cartoon show as opposed to changing with the time and trying to be a little bit more realistic. Not many people were tuning into Nash's run with the belt, but maybe that's just because not many people were tuning into the WWF in 1995. Nash would eventually lose the belt back to Bret Hart, who I personally believe he had some of his greatest matches with. Following the loss, he'd continue to pursue the belt, and at that year's Royal Rumble, Nash would involve himself in Bret's match, denying The Undertaker a victory. Somewhat similar to what happened to him at the Rumble the year before. In the main event, he was the last man eliminated by best friend Shawn Michaels, which would effectively end their time together. For real this time. Diesel would get his rematch with Bret Hart in a steel cage match, and The Undertaker would interfere to get his retribution, attacking Diesel and bringing him down to the depths of hell. Or, at least the depths of the ring. Yeah, let me know if you see Hornswoggle down there. This would lead to a WrestleMania match with The Undertaker, which Diesel would of course lose. It's kind of a spoiler, kind of a dead giveaway. As soon as you see Undertaker in WrestleMania, if your name's not Brock Lesnar or Roman Reigns, guy's going over, which I'll talk about in depth relatively soon on this channel. Following his feud with The Undertaker, he'd attempt to regain his championship from brand new champion Shawn Michaels. And the rivalry would turn out to be Diesel's swan song, as he'd follow real-life best friend and co-worker Scott Hall into getting a WCW contract.
Razor Ramon, a very good friend of mine.
Nash claims that they offered him more than Sting money, which was the measuring stick for a lot of guys in the business. Sting was getting paid a lot of money. Maybe he wasn't making quite as much as Macho or Hogan, or even Flair, but, paycheck was up there. And it was quite an upgrade from Diesel's WWF paycheck at the time. Nash, treating the business as what it is, a business, accepted the offer despite being more than content with his place in the WWF. Hall and Nash would work their last show against their good friends, Shawn Michaels and Triple H, with both losing their goodbye matches. After the main event, Razor, Diesel, Shawn, and Hunter Hearst Helmsley hugged it out in the middle of the ring, shocking the hell out of the audience and some of the guys in the back. Now, this wasn't just a breaking of the fourth wall, this was a complete demolition of the fourth wall. Heels and faces embracing each other, no longer betraying their characters, but just being themselves. The moment has since been named the Madison Square Garden incident, or as it's better known, the curtain call. And it would have repercussions, though Hall and Nash would face none of them as they were already out the door. And ultimately, that's Diesel's time in the WWF. It's amazing what this man accomplished in the company in just 3 years. He became a Grand Slam champion, winning the tag team titles multiple times, the Intercontinental title once, and had a year-long run as WWF champion. While he wasn't the draw the company hoped he would be, I think it'd be a mistake calling his run with the company a failure. I mean, he was constantly pushed, always given something to do, and usually was put into the main event. And to be honest, looking back, I actually think he's somewhat underrated. I mean, don't get me wrong, he's no Bret Hart, but I also wouldn't rate him a 4 out of 10 wrestler like Bret probably would either. Honestly, it's not that much of a surprise that his time with the company, and more so over his championship reign, was considered a fail. When you take into account that most of the major accolades in his WWF career took place on house shows rather than being televised for a wider audience. It's harder to get behind someone who you're just told is successful, rather than someone you've seen physically succeed. I know a lot of history re-envisionists or really opinionated wrestling fans, not throwing shade, I mean come on, let's face it, I'm one of them, like to act that Kevin Nash couldn't wrestle his way out of a paper bag. Honestly, there's nothing wrong with the guy's in-ring style. He's a big guy. He wrestled like a big guy. I'm sorry that he didn't do a 450 splash. In terms of his performances, I don't see anything wrong with them. He may not have done much, but what he did do, he did well. On top of that, I don't think his time as champion caused the low buy rates, but rather the era he was a part of. I know it's a punchline that Diesel was the worst WWF champion, but let's be real with each other here. I mean, the future he had in the industry following that championship reign would prove that he had all the tools that he needed to succeed.
And people say, well, you know, fuck, Nash is lazy. You know what? Fuck you.
So with that being said, I'm the Social Injustice Warrior V Infuso, and if you like the words that came out of my mouth hole and you too want to become a VTard, don't forget to like and subscribe. There's plenty more where this video came from. Follow me on Twitter because, hell, why not? It's not considered stalking if it's on the internet, am I right? And don't forget to join the Discord. I don't have anything catchy to add to that, but just join it. Just go do it. And if you have a free moment of time and a free dollar to spare, then head over to my Patreon, where for just $1, you too could help keep this boat afloat. And if you don't have that dollar, but you do have a free moment of time, then hit the share button. It will help me out tremendously.
VTart, oh.
It's me, Big Daddy Cool, World Wrestling Federation Champion.
Well, yes, yeah, I'm aware.
6'10", 330 pounds.
Diesel.
And he's all mine, always at my back.
Ha! Gay!
Insanity is doing the exact same fucking thing over and over again.
Bobby boy. That's it, Bob. You know, Bob, the entire world, Bob. You know, Bob. Yeah, Bob. Wake up, Bob. Welcome to the new generation, Bobby boy. Bob. And
Well, Ray, without a doubt, Sid is probably the most genetically blessed person that I've worked against.
Excuse me, what?
Hi, Kevin. Hi, Kevin. Hi, Kevin. Hi, Kevin. Hi, Kevin. I'm your biggest fan.